Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Lester.
Good afternoon to you.
I'd like to ask you about the site visit you've been asked a little bit about in February of 2007. A letter was sent by the council saying we want to come and inspect property on such and such a date, such and such a time. Was that letter received by you, or was it received by somebody else?
It wasn't received by me, no. As far as I can recollect anyway, but I'm going back a long time.
I understand. And the purpose of you being at Lancaster Avenue on the 2nd of February was in order to let the officer in and for him to be able to carry out his inspection. And do you remember who it was that asked you if you could attend Lancaster Avenue for those purposes?
Not really, no. I'm sorry. As I say, it was a long time ago.
And who was with you?
I'm sorry, I believe it was Martin Vincent.
And when the officer arrived, do you remember whether you and Mr. Vincent, or you in the presence of Mr. Vincent, had some conversation with the officer?
Yes, yes.
And who was doing most of the talking, you or Mr. Vincent?
That I can't recollect even, sorry. It's in the conversation, I don't remember who spoke what.
And then did there come a point where, we've heard from Mr. Vincent yesterday, I think, did there come a point where Mr. Vincent, I think, stayed where he was and you carried on with the officer showing him around the building?
That would have been complete, yes.
And so any conversation that took place with the officer was conversation either when you and Mr. Vincent were there together or when it was just you and the officer?
Correct, yeah.
And I just want to ask you about various things that the officer has noted down that were said, and you can tell us whether you can remember them or not. Do you remember, I'm going to say you, what I mean by that is whether you said it or whether it was said by Mr. Vincent in your presence, okay? Do you remember the officer being told that Miss Rabbi Wanderer lived at the property?
I'm not sure if it was Rabbi Simon or Rabbi Wanderer.
Okay.
We had two rabbis. First Rabbi Simon and then Rabbi Wanderer.
Do you remember the officer being told that a rabbi lived at the property?
Oh yes, yes, definitely.
Do you remember the officer being told that there's one room which is used by the rabbi to host a service once a week at most?
Yes.
Do you remember the officer being told that that service was for the local elderly?
I would never have said that at all. It's a young, when I say young, compared to the young community.
Do you remember it being said by Mr. Vincent in your presence?
I would remember if that was said, but it wouldn't be true.
It wasn't said?
It definitely wasn't said.
So, the officers, if the officer says that was said, then your position is he's either made a mistake or he's made it up.
It wasn't said, that's not true. As I said, it's a younger community. There may be one or two older people, but that was all.
Do you remember telling the officer that there was another synagogue in Oakwood? Or do you remember the officer being told there was another synagogue in Oakwood?
That would have come into the conversation as far as I was concerned. I would remember that.
It did or it didn't come into conversation?
It didn't come into the conversation,
Didn't.
as far as I was concerned.
And you'd remember it if it was said?
Yes.
So again, so far as that's concerned, again, the officer has either made a mistake about that or he's made it up.
I would suggest that, first of all, there isn't a synagogue in Oakwood at all. There's one in Southgate, not Oakwood. So I know that, and I wouldn't have said that either.
Do you remember the officer being told that about a synagogue which was a 1.5 hour walk away?
There is one, but I don't remember saying that.
Again, so that we've got a clear understanding of it. Are you saying if it was said you'd remember it, or are you saying you don't remember one way or the other?
I don't remember.
Do you remember the officer being told about people who aren't allowed to drive to the synagogue on the Sabbath?
I don't remember that. Because people do drive, in the real world, they park down the corner.
Again, I'm sorry, Mr. Lester, but so we understand, are you saying if it had been said you'd remember it,
Yes.
and therefore it wasn't said? Is that your position?
I can't recollect saying that people... Sorry, say the question again for me.
Of course.
Slowly.
Are you saying that if it had been said, you would remember it?
Oh, yes.
And since you don't remember it, are you therefore saying it wasn't said?
I really don't remember that.
Don't remember.
I'm really honest. Because it's just a frivolous thing that you would speak about maybe 10 years ago or so.
Do you remember the officer being told that the only reason that there's sometimes a service at the property is because of the distance to walk to the other synagogue?
I personally wouldn't walk to the synagogue, and not many people would walk. Couldn't do that anyway.
No, I'm asking you about what was said. Do you remember the officer being told that the sole reason there's sometimes a service at the property is for people who have to walk to the synagogue?
No, I don't remember that at all.
And again, are you saying you don't remember it, or are you saying it wasn't said?
It wouldn't have been said.
So I put you, didn't I, just now, a list of things that asked you whether you remember them being said. And again, those that you say weren't said was that the service, the weekly services for the local elderly,
That definitely wasn't said.
definitely wasn't said.
That's not correct. Really not correct.
That there was a synagogue in Oakwood, didn't say that.
No, because there isn't one.
And third, that the sole reason services are sometimes held in Lancaster Avenue is because of the walk to an alternative synagogue.
Do you want me to elaborate on that or not?
Well, I just don't want to know whether you said whether you heard it said or not.
It wasn't said.
Not said. And for each of those three things, your position is that the officer has either made a mistake about those three things or he's made it up.
Let's assume that he made it up. No, sorry, beg your pardon. Made it up, he misunderstood.
Well, what do you think he might have misunderstood?
None of those things in my presence were said.
After the visit had taken place, did you report back to anybody about how it had gone?
Yes, yes.
Who did you report back to?
It might have been probably Mike Singer.
And do you remember, Mr. Lester, a few minutes ago I was asking you who it was that asked you to go and attend at the visit? And you were struggling to remember. Do you remember? Do you think, on reflection, do you think maybe it was Mr. Singer who had asked you to go along?
I really can't say because there were other members on the committee.
Were you on the committee?
I was the House Committee.
You were on the House Committee. And what did that involve?
Making sure that it was clean and tidy, etc. Maintenance.
And did you know that, presumably you knew Mr. Vincent was going along, that didn't come as a surprise to you to see him there?
No.
Were you a key holder to the building?
Yes.
What about Mr. Vincent, do you know?
He was a key holder too.
And when you were asked to go, so you were told Mr. Vincent would be there to meet you as well. And we've heard from Mr. Vincent yesterday. He would know his way around the building, wouldn't he?
Not so much upstairs. I would, but he wouldn't have done it. There's no reason for him to go upstairs.
No. But all you were having to do upstairs was let an officer look around, weren't you?
That's right.
Did you wonder why it was that you were being asked to go along as well as Mr. Vincent?
It didn't occur to me.
You were... do you know Councillor Zinkin?
No.
Never met her, never spoken to her?
I personally have never spoken to her.
You were asked about your declaration, the document that you signed a few weeks ago. Just a couple of questions, Mr. Lester, please, about that. We've heard from some others this morning about the way in which their statements were prepared. So far as your statement is prepared, were you sent a draft to check through, or given a draft?
I can't relate. I don't think I'll ever say no.
No. Who drafted it?
His first statement or the second statement?
The more recent one, the second one.
The second statement was the lawyer in our community.
Who gave him the information to put in it?
What information did you say? My name and address?
Well, let's look at the... Have you got it in front of you? We We've only got another couple of minutes, Mr. Lester. Can you see the first paragraph? I'm a paid up member of the HWJC Jewish community and have been so since October 2002. Who gave that information to the lawyer?
I don't know.
Did you have a meeting with the lawyer?
Only when I signed the statement.
So before you signed the statement, you hadn't met up with him anywhere?
Nothing about this. Obviously, I met him because he's a member of the community.
Yeah, but not about this.
No, no.
Had he telephoned you about it?
No.
Had you had any email correspondence about it?
No.
So the first time you met him was about the signing this, is that what you said?
I knew of him before, obviously. But that was the first time.
I'm so sorry, yes.
That was the first time that we had a meeting and we saw the...
And that was at the synagogue, wasn't it, on the 21st of April?
Yes.
And was that the first time you'd seen the document?
Oh, yes, yes.
And you hadn't had a conversation with the solicitor before that about what was going to go in it?
No.
Had you had a conversation with anybody else about what was going to go in it?
No.
So you went along to the synagogue on the 21st of April. You were shown or given the copy of this document by the solicitor, and you read it, presumably?
Yes.
And signed it?
Yes.
When you were asked questions earlier on by Mr. Tabachnik, you were asked about attendances, do you remember?
Yes.
And you said, at least my note has it, that you said obviously people are there, but you wouldn't know the numbers.
No.
And by that you mean the numbers of people attending services?
Correct.
So those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Mr. Lester, how long were you a key holder for, please, as best you recall?
Oh, right from the time that the property was bought.
2002.
Yes.
And key holder means, does it mean to the front door? Or what keys did you hold?
I haven't held all the keys. But you'd only go through the front door because there's a burglar alarm.
Did you have the codes for the burglar alarm?
Yes.
The meeting at the synagogue on the 21st of April, were you there for the whole of the meeting?
Which one? Is it referring to this when we signed the statement?
Yes.
Yes.
And in the course of that, were there individual discussions between individual members and Mr. Feinberg?
No, that's not the thing. No. It couldn't because there's too many people there.
I want you to look again at your statement, please. Just read it over again to yourself. In light of the questions you've been asked, is there anything in this statement which you wish to alter or amend?
That is all correct.
And the statement that I've just asked you to reread, does it reflect your honest recollection of the matters that are contained within it?
Yes, yes.
Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Lester. Hope we don't make you late for the next one.
I have two very short questions.
Of course.
Was the synagogue room kept locked?
No. There's no opening. There's two doors.
Was that room kept laid out for a service?
Yes.
Very much.
Thank you, Madam. Can we have Melvin Langley next, please?
Thank you.
I do solemnly,
Sincerely
sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
the truth.
Your full name,
Melvin Langley,
I declare that.
33 Beach Avenue, Bugle.
Very much.
Afternoon, Mr. Langley. Hopefully you've got a statutory declaration in front of you with your signature on, and it's dated the 21st of April, do you?
Yes, I do.
At least according to my notes, that's the only statutory declaration that you've signed in relation
It's
to
my
this matter.
recollection, you are correct.
Now, before you read this document out, will you tell the inquiry what your professional role is, please?
I'm a chartered certified accountant.
And you in practice as such?
Yes.
Will you read your statement, please?
I, Melvin Langley, of 33 Beach Hill Avenue, Barnet, EM4 OLU, do solemnly and sincerely declare as follows. I'm a paid-up member of the Happy-Wood Jewish community and have been so since November 2002. I've attended services at 8 Avenue, Happy-Wood since 2002 and have consistently noted attendance of 30 or more men and women at services. I make the solemn declaration conscientiously, believing the same to be true, and I vote for the statutory declaration of 1835.
Short enough statement. Do you still believe the contents of that document are true?
Without a doubt.
Has anyone asked you or instructed you to say what you've said in this short document?
No.
Just wait that.
Afternoon, Mr. Langley. So far as this document was concerned, again, were you sent it by email by somebody else?
No, I do recollect that my recollections were requested by email sometime ago.
How long ago?
I can't remember. I get sent like 200 emails a day, so it's a busy practice.
Who was the request from?
I couldn't honestly tell you. It's someone from the shore. Sorry.
Did you go to the meeting on the 21st of April?
Yes, I did.
So approximately how long before that meeting were you sent an email asking you for your recollections?
It could have been 4 or 6 weeks. I can't honestly remember.
And when you say asking you for your recollections, what was it? Was it as general as that, or were there a series of questions? What was it?
It's quite general.
What can you give us your recollections?
Over the years, have you been attending the shore? The answer was simply yes.
In the form of a question, was that?
Yes, and would I be prepared to assist in any information to confirm the same? And I said yes.
Was that it?
That's on memory.
So have you been over the years attending synagogue?
Yes, and still do.
No, I'm
The answer is
recounting what was in the email.
yes.
Have you over the years been attending synagogue? Question one.
Yes.
And are you prepared to assist for these purposes? Question two. That was the second question, was it?
What was your question two, please?
When you got the email, you said that it was a general email asking you, have you over the years been attending the synagogue, and whether you're prepared to assist?
Yes.
So those were the two questions which were asked
Well,
by
I
the
can
email.
remember.
And you, presumably you replied yes and yes.
Of course, it's true.
And in your reply, did you provide any more information?
Not material. I can't really remember what I supplied. It was a very, very short email. I wrote it very quickly.
And I appreciate you get lots of emails, but we're talking about something roughly 7 weeks ago. Presumably, if there are any other detailed questions that were asked
Can I
of
beg
you,
to
do you
differ?
remember them?
Can I beg to differ? If I may.
Of course you can.
You're referring to 7 weeks ago. It's the 21st of April meeting. The email was sometime before, so it's a bit wrong. I just
A
correct
few moments ago, you told us it was shortly before that meeting.
Shortly before was weeks before. So I said I couldn't be precise.
I'll ask you one more time, please. Other than the two questions you've told us about in the email sent to you, were you asked any other questions in that email?
And I said I cannot recollect.
In your response to that email, did you provide any other information than yes and yes to those two questions?
And I repeat, as far as I can recall, that's what I said in the email.
The yes and the yes. Bear with me just a moment, please. And tell me if something else happened in between, but was the next thing you knew about your declaration when you were shown it at the meeting on the 21st of April?
Correct.
And you read it over.
Yes.
Did you make any changes to it?
You know, the facts are simple. No necessity for any changes. They were factual from my perspective.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
So, re-examination.
So, Mr. Langley, you say that you have attended services.
Correct.
How often?
But it's not as often as some people would like, but regularly, because my grandson is being mitzvah shortly, and I go to synagogue with him as well.
I hate to press you on this, but you say not as often as some people would like. So, weekly, monthly?
It's not every week, it's a little erratic, but maybe every other week. But I can actually direct my grandson there.
Before your grandson was old enough to go, did you used to go?
Yes,
Was that more often?
about the same, because it's also social and you can meet your neighbours, your friends, and chat.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Langley. Penny Kenton.
Mrs. Kenton is someone else who I have a star against. And not being likely to attend or being able to attend. So I don't know what Mr. Brown's position is.
Well, I think there must have been an updated one.
I haven't seen an updated one, but I'm okay to carry on.
Okay.
Right, Ms. Kenton, you've hopefully got a statutory declaration in front of you that you signed. Is that your signature?
Yes, it is.
And it's dated the 22nd of April 2015.
It is.
And I believe this is the only one you've made in relation to these proceedings.
I think I made another one.
You
I made
another
another one the year before.
On page 52 of Appendix 7. Thank you.
My notes. Yeah. Right. Let's start with your April 2015 statutory declaration then, please. Can you read it out to the inquiry?
Yes. I, Penny Kenton of 12 Amara Lodge, 371 Cotswold Road, Barnet, EN 40JT, do solemnly and sincerely declare as follows. I am a paid-up member of the Hadleywood Jewish community and have been since November 2002. My late husband, Stephen Kenton, was involved in the community from its services in 1990. He sat on the management committee and regularly attended services both at 8 Lancaster Avenue and prior to this. He assisted the community in legal matters, including the search of premises in Hadleywood, the purchase of 8 Lancaster Avenue, and the formation of the Hadleywood Jewish Community Charity, whose objects state the use of the house as a premises for a community synagogue, as well as providing residential accommodation for a rabbi. I myself have regularly been attending weekly services at 8 Lancaster Avenue, Hadleywood, since 2003, and have served as secretary to the Hadleywood Jewish Community Board and have sat on several related committees. Since the inception of the synagogue at 8 Lancaster Avenue has attracted attendances of 30 or more people to services on the majority of occasions, including the early years.
Thank you very much. Is that statement true to the best of your knowledge, information and belief?
Absolutely.
Have you got your earlier statutory declaration, please?
I don't have it with me.
It will be shown to you.
Yes.
Just remind yourself of it, please, and then the same question applies. Is it, as you sit here now, true to the best of your knowledge, information and belief?
Yes, it is.
The contents of your longer statement, the April 2015 one, is there anything in there which you were, as it were, instructed or told to include?
No, but I think I made a mistake at the beginning, putting November 2002 instead of September. Absolutely not at all, as is.
So should we correct November to September?
Please.
And the rest of the document, does that reflect your evidence or is that someone else's evidence?
That is my evidence.
Is it true?
Completely.
You've heard the suggestion that floats around this inquiry of someone putting words in others' mouths, ideas in others' heads. Does that apply in relation to the contents of this statement as far as you're concerned?
No, it does not. I did not know how to actually go about preparing it, so I did ask on the format, but the words I've asked to be included have been included, and I've signed it.
Thank you very much. You just wait there, please.
Thank you. Who did you ask about the format?
Mike Singer.
And we can see that you signed it on the 22nd of April.
Yes.
Do you remember approximately how long before that you asked him about the format?
I think it was a number of weeks.
And did Mr. Singer send you a format, or was it just a discussion then?
No, I told them what I wanted to say and how, I mean, my late husband was the solicitor, so I've been quite involved and I knew what I wanted to say. Just don't have the experience to put it down the way I wanted to. So he kind of put my words into a document, which was good, and I signed it. It was what I
And
wanted.
was that discussion with Mr. Singer, were you with him at the time, or was it over the telephone, or
It
what?
was over the telephone.
And did Mr. Singer ask you a number of questions in that discussion?
I can't remember. I just remember telling him, what I wanted to say, and he guided me maybe on what I wanted to include, but I knew pretty much.
So far as the question of attendance is, again, were you asked a question by Mr. Singer about attendances, or did you volunteer that you wanted to talk about attendances?
Well, we talked about attendances. I knew there was at least over 30. In my opinion, there was the upper limit of 30, because I've been to quite a few of the services at show packs, and it was always getting very busy. And when I went to the services with the new show, I was always taking down extra chairs to sit on if I arrived a bit later, which I did often.
And so in your conversation with Mr. Singer, the first mention of the figure of 30 came not from him, but from you.
No, he said, what do you think the number is? I said, well, it's got to be in excess of 30 because it's always so busy and I'm always having to take down extra chairs. So I thought it was more than 30.
That's what I'm asking. But who made the first...
As an approximation, and you can't say exactly every single day it's 30 or every single day it's going to be 40 or 50. So it's in excess of 30. Sometimes it was quiet. In the holidays, people were away on holiday. It might have been less, and sometimes it was a lot more. So it's really an approximation, but usually it's actually...
I understand it's an approximation, but again, so that we've got a clear answer. As to that approximation, in your conversation with Mr. Singer, who first mentioned the figure 30?
I don't recall.
I'm not sure if you said this earlier or not, Mrs. Kenton. You read out that your late husband was involved in the legal matters. He was a solicitor, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you go to the meeting on the 21st? I didn't, I'm afraid.
So, how much did you know before you made this declaration about the subject of these proceedings?
Well, being involved in the show, I knew a bit, obviously, and I was asked if I could help do the declaration.
Were you aware of the issues that I have to look into?
Yes.
And in the conversation you had with Mr. Singer for your declaration, who mentioned attendances, not numbers, but how did the subject of attendance come up? Can you remember?
I can't really recall. I don't remember.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Minsky next, please.
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly,
How many times have I said it? Stop again, sorry. I do solemnly,
I do solemnly,
sincerely and truly
sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Your full name,
Bernard Simon Minsky,
and your address.
8 Broadgate Avenue, Hadleywood, Barnet, EN4, 0.
Good afternoon, Mr. Minsky.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for coming. Have you got your April 2015 witness statement?
I do.
Statement declaration. Can you read it out, please, in the competent parts?
I, Bernard Minsky of 8 Broadgate Avenue, Barnet, EN40NU, do solemnly and sincerely declare as follows. I am a paid-up member of the Hadleywood Jewish community and have been so since October 2002. Prior to this, I was a member of the Hadleywood community as a satellite community of the Cockcrosters and North Southgate Synagogue. I have regularly been attending services and other events at 8 Lancaster Avenue, Hadleywood, since 2002. Prior to this, I attended services at the homes of members. I was a founding donor to the Hadleywood Jewish community in 2003, as it had become clear to me that we had outgrown our previous informal arrangements and we needed a more permanent home for our services and for our rabbi in Hadleywood. I make this solemn declaration conscientiously, believing the same to be true, and by virtue of the Statutory Declarations Act 1835.
And having just read those out, are you able to tell us whether the contents of that statement are true to the best of your knowledge, information and belief?
To the best of my knowledge, it is true, with the exception of where it was signed. If you see it stated the 25th day of April, and in fact it's 25th, the copy I have clearly been written the 25th, and it was signed at Allwood House. So the address 8 Lancaster Avenue is incorrect.
I see. Who did you declare this in front of?
Jeffrey Feingold.
And is that your signature on the document?
It is.
And with that qualification, the words that you've otherwise read, are they true?
They're absolutely true.
You also made a statutory declaration the year before, 7-50, in Mr. Newton's.
I have a copy of it.
Excellent. Just remind yourself of that document, please. And are its contents true?
Yes.
Now, you describe yourself as being a regular attender of services since 2002. Can I ask you, please, what your definition of a regular attender is?
On average, I attend every other week. There have been some 2 particular years where I've attended every single week that I've been available, so when I'm not on holiday. But I've always been in attendance at least every other week.
And in the early period of Lancaster Avenue, 2002, 3, 4, can you be any more precise?
I was probably a more frequent attender then, because my children were younger and I used to go to the synagogue with them as well as on my own volition.
How many children did you bring along?
2.
Um,
And my wife attended
as well.
as well.
And doing the best you can to think back to those early years. How many others were there with you?
I would say there would be between 30 and 65, 70, depending on the occasion. I'm something of a nerd because I'm a trained statistician and I have a habit of counting how many people were actually in the synagogue. And when I got in excess of sort of 40, 45, I lost interest in counting. I rarely failed to get to sort of 33, 34. That's men, women, and the youngsters.
You have a specific recollection, do you, of what you just told the inquiry?
Yes.
Has anyone asked you to say anything in particular during the course of your evidence, or include anything in particular in your witness statements?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Minsky. Just wait there, please.
Mr. Minsky, you said how in the early years you would usually, I think, take your 2 children.
Yes.
And your wife as well, would she go?
Yes. Sometimes she would bring the children, sometimes they would come with me because, as I think you heard earlier, people don't all arrive at the same time, and it's quite a job getting the children out of the house. So sometimes I would go before my wife and the children.
And were you typical of other members who would also attend with their, as a family, with husband, wife, children?
Well, there was a spectrum of membership, but those of my cohort, yes. So I was, the cohort with young children in the 2000 to 2007 era, and yes, and today you will see the same in the cohort that are younger than me.
So for those who had young children between 2000 and 2007, it would be not uncommon for them to attend as a family on a Saturday morning.
Not uncommon.
Usual?
Usual. It is a community.
So far as your statutory declaration, please, who typed it out?
Jeffrey Feingold.
As to the content, had you discussed it with him before he typed it out, or did you discuss it with somebody else?
I didn't discuss it with him before he typed it out, but he gave me a draft several weeks before I signed it, and I reviewed it.
And was this, the draft that he gave you, is that what we see here?
Correct.
I'm sorry. That went straight into privilege. As soon as there's discussions, the drafts flowing between witnesses and lawyers, straight into privilege
Oh,
discussions.
the witness said that he saw it.
Well,
and
the
signed
witness
it.
has answered the question before I can make my objection, but that was straight into privilege.
Well, nearly everybody's been asked in chief, so far as their declarations are concerned, A, how it came about, and B, whether they were happy with the contents.
So,
it was my recollection that we've had similar questions of many witnesses.
not quite in that way,
Sorry,
and not quite with that chronology beforehand. The answer that the witness gave before made it obvious that the chronology was going straight through privileged conversations.
We'll leave it there. I'm not quite. I'm obviously not listening properly. Right.
Well, so far as the information in there is concerned, is that information that you had given to Mr. Feingold?
Yes.
As to the issues you covered in your declaration, did you discuss with anybody what issues to cover?
No.
So no discussion with anybody about the issues to cover, not with Mr. Singer.
No.
Not with anybody else from the community,
No.
not with Mrs. Minsky.
No.
Is the wording your wording?
It is, the content is what I wanted to say, but I answered before, it was drafted by Mr. Peingold.
You say, so far as attendance is, that the first time you've ever been asked about attendances back in 2002 or 2003 is this afternoon.
Yes.
And in answer to that question, you gave to Mr. Tabachnik a range, didn't you?
Yes.
And the figure at the bottom of the range was 30.
Yes.
During the course of the inquiry itself, which other witnesses have you seen giving evidence?
I saw Mr. Pittle, Mr. Pack, Mr. Lester, and Mrs. Kent.
I think of those four, I'll be correct if I've got it wrong, but I think of those four, the two who gave figures for attendances were Mr. Pack and Mrs. Kenton. Both of whom we heard referred to a lower figure of 30. Is it just a coincidence that your approximation for the bottom of the bracket is the same as the approximation for the bottom of the bracket that they've given?
If you really want to know, as I said, I am a statistician and I'm used to rounding numbers. So it is quite common to round to the nearest 10. And so it would not be surprising that I came up with the same figure if other people have rounded to the nearest 10. We have,
And your figure of 30, we talked about in the early years that children would attend. And we've heard from others, but I don't think this is controversial, that although people might arrive at different times, generally speaking, everybody tries to stay for the kiddush.
yes, and they will also stay because there are parts of the service that, let's say, are emotionally more important, particularly for people who are in mourning, that take place at the end of the service.
Yes. And again, in those early years when you were taking your children, and you told us that was usual, that people would go with their children if their children are of a certain age. And approximately, again, I know it's an approximation, but approximately how many children would you typically expect to see at a Saturday service?
It varied from, let's say, 5 or 6 on a low number to, if we had a large service, you could be talking about 15, 20 children.
Yes. And as you told us earlier, your approximations are men, women and children.
Yes.
I understand you're a statistician, but was it your habit to count people in and count people out every Saturday morning?
It was my habit to count people with bottoms sat on chairs, yes.
And is that something you then discuss with people afterwards?
No, it's an unfortunate quirk.
I suspect the answer is no, but presumably you didn't, as part of the quirk, make a note of it.
I wish I had, then I could have calculated means and standard deviations.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Binsky, I have been told, you weren't here, I think it was yesterday, that there is a screen between the men and the women.
Yes, it is I think transparent is the wrong word to use, but it is a screen that is a physical barrier, but not one that obscures view.
See where my question's leading. So you can see the women's account.
Originally it was made of a trellis, and in those areas which had, it was purely a formal barrier, and there was no obscuring view.
So
We also
you
stand up a lot.
You said originally, so what now?
Now it's a slightly finer mesh, but because we stand up, we are taller than the barrier. At least I am.
And I haven't made a note of how many or even the date, but your address has appeared on several people's statutory declarations in early 2015. How did that come about? Were people made at that
Right. I'm a member of the Cultural and Social Committee of the synagogue, and we were holding a meeting at my house when Mr. Feingold came and asked us to sign our declaration.
And at that meeting, was that when you filled it in, the first one?
Yes.
Next, on the books, please. Good afternoon, thank you for coming. You hopefully have your statutory declaration from April of this year in front of you. Have you got that? Can you read this out, please?
Hi, when it was flat 389 Colchester Road, Abbey, could you try and speak into that and try and speak a little louder, please?
I'm on your books of flat 389 Cockfosters Road, Abbey Wood, HWJC. Solemnly and sincerely declare as follows: I'm a paid up member of the Hadley Jewish community, so since September 2002. I've regularly been attending weekly services at 8 Lancaster Avenue, Abbey Wood, since 2002. I have also been attending weekly activities in the form of religious lectures.
Thank you very much. Can you tell us the date on the bottom of that document?
13th March 14.
And are the contents of that document true and correct
Yes.
as you sit here now?
Yes.
Did you make a more recent statement to that in 2015?
Yes.
Can you read that one as well, please?
You just need to say your name again.
Just start from I've been aware.
I've been aware of Jewish services taking place in Abbey Wood for the past 25 years. The first of these took place in my own home. I've regularly attended services at the synagogue at 8 Lancaster Avenue, and before that at various events in Abbey Wood, including my own. I can state by the time services moved to the synagogue in 2003, I think actually in 2, service were being attended by 30 to 40 people, and more if there's a special event or celebration. My husband and I made a donation to the purchase of 8 Lancaster Avenue, as by 2002 it became clear that the community had outgrown services in these houses. From the early 1990s and up till this past year, in 2006, my husband Tony Wilkes had been a regular attendee in weekly services, including from January 2003 at 8 Lancaster Avenue.
Now, apart from the correction that you made in the middle of the big paragraph from 2003 to 2, the rest of the statement correct?
Yes, lower down it says 2003.
What should it say if you...
2002.
It says from January 2003. If you want to change that, can you indicate what the inspector should change it to?
From January 2002.
Do you have in your mind at the moment, this is a memory test, do you have in your mind when 8 Lancaster was purchased?
As a date, no, obviously prior to that, but no.
Okay. Apart from those matters, is the rest of this statement true and correct? You describe yourself as a regular attender of services at 8 Lancaster. Can you tell the inquiry, please, your definition of regular attendance?
Twice.
Twice a month. And are you still a regular attender?
Yes.
You haven't said anything in your statement about the numbers of people who attend, who have attended more recently, as far as you're aware. What's your evidence on that, please?
Well, I see. The last year, in fact, the last occasion I went was weeks back. There was near 100. There was a celebration, so it was really bursting the scene. It was very much a full house, which is unusual.
And on recent attendances where it's been a non-celebration weekend,
It's got to be late 20s to late 30s. It is.
good. Thank you very much. Now, you refer to having made a donation at the time 8 Lancaster was acquired. What was the purpose, from your perspective, of the donation?
Towards purchase of the cinema.
And when the inspector conducts her site visit, will she see anything on and around the ark with your name on it?
Well, the only thing that, the only thing there's my husband's name, I dedicated a scroll to the synagogue, and there's a plaque stating that. But nothing to do with the contribution towards the purchase of the synagogue.
Yes. Good. Thank you. That's all my questions. You might please.
So Mrs. Brooks, you said that for more recent Saturdays where there's not a celebration going on, attendances are in the late 20s to late 30s. So is it your evidence that for a normal Saturday, attendances from 2003 to 2015 have been falling?
No.
No? What were attendances on a normal Saturday back in 2003? Typically?
My memory's not that good.
When your more recent declaration was made in April, did you type it out?
Type this,
Yeah.
not personally, no.
Did you have a discussion with somebody about what was going to be in it?
I spoke to Mike Singer and told him what I wanted in my statement.
And in terms of the information that is in the statement, is that all information that was provided by you to Mr. Singer, or was some of it mentioned by Mr. Singer to you?
No, it's my statement.
So when you say in your statement that by the time services moved to the synagogue in 2003, you say services were being attended by 30 to 40 people.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
So, well, at the time you made that statement, was your memory clear about attendances in 2003?
Must have been.
But as at today's date, your memory is not so clear. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I just asked you, Linda, a few minutes ago about attendances between 2003 and 2015, didn't I? And you had answered in a question to a question from Mr. Tabachnik that on a normal Saturday now, attendances would be in the late 20s to late 30s. Do you remember that answer?
Yeah.
And I asked you whether that meant that you thought attendances had fallen since 2003 on a normal Saturday, and you said no. And then I asked you what attendances were in 2003, and you said my memory's not that good.
Yeah.
So how is your memory so much clearer at the time you made your declaration?
I'll tell you.
No more questions, thank you.
No questions?
Mr. Brooks, in your first statutory declaration, you talk about attending weekly activities in the form of religious lectures. When did you start doing those?
I did most of my activities possibly after my husband passed away.
That's 2000. And what sort of, were they regular evening lectures or occasional?
No, some of it appealed to me.
And is it mostly the, sorry, I've also heard about Friday evening meals.
Yes.
Have you ever attended
Yes.
those?
Yes.
Can you tell me roughly when? Okay.
No.
And were they large meals or more sort of small family occasions with that one?
Oh no, they were, the community was invited to some of those. Chose to come or not to.
Thank you very much.
the end of the list.
Have we got any information on dates and rooms?
We've narrowed down information on dates, and I'm waiting for information on rooms. Would you go with me just a moment, please? Can I ask you to adjourn for a few minutes whilst
Of course.
Mr. Newton checks? Can I tell you what date we're looking at?
Yeah.
Whilst Mr. Newton first makes his way. We had identified some dates in September, which then proved were likely to be difficult, I gather, because of Jewish holidays and people. Some may be able to attend, some may not be able to attend. Mr. Newton is away the first half of September. The second half of September is effectively been ruled out by the Jewish holidays. My learned friend isn't available the week of the 5th of October, so we have, by process of elimination, come to the week of the 12th of October. And the learned friend and I are both available. Witnesses, I understand, are all available. And Mr. Newton is making inquiry now, are they room for that week? We don't, of course, know now.
Yes, I am.
You are.
I should have said, and I'm terribly sorry, it may not fit in with your arrangements, but I would have had, I have no problem attending on a Monday.
I was just going to raise Monday, given that we all know each other. It sounds like at least none of the three of us are travelling from other parts of the country, from what you've said.
No.
So, and given your indication you might like a few days to think about matters before you go on holiday, it might be a good idea to go from Monday to Wednesday that week.
No problem with that, subject to the room. Excuse me for
Yeah,
this whilst
well,
we
let's,
wait for Mr.
yeah. Good. Well, we're just waiting. Who's coming? I think, given the time, if it was convenient to people, it might be an idea to do the site visit. I don't know, how long does it take to get there? Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd have to scrounge a lift for somebody, which would mean I'd have to travel with somebody from the community or the appellate side and the council. Otherwise, it's public transport, and I'd never get there.
Well, I'm sure whoever gives you a lift would be delighted to take Mr. Newton or one of his assistants.
I don't know who's coming.
I think Mr. Newton is going.
But then does that leave Mr. Newton in the middle of hiking wood without ability to get back where he's got? Sorry, you're
Mr. Pemberton. Mr. Pemberton should go as well, and then either in the same car or a separate car, and then you can bring Mr. Newton back.
Madam, I raised yesterday the possibility of attendance on a Saturday morning. I don't know if you've spoken to the powers that be.
I haven't had it. I don't think it would be possible, given that I'd have to have somebody from the council there as well, and I can't expect them to give up a Saturday morning unless anybody, whether they've taken instructions.
Well, I haven't known, but I suspect I know the answer. Can I ask on a separate housekeeping issue, really? I understand from what my own friend said earlier that he thought there were probably about 10 witnesses likely to be called on the next occasion. But there is, as you know, a list of 60-something of whom we probably had around 30-ish, I think. I wonder if I could ask whether or not the appellant, either through my learned friend or his agent, could notify, say 7 days in advance of the next day, which witnesses it is intended to call. I'm not suggesting that be a binding list, but it would be a great help to me and no doubt to you if we had some idea of who it was that was expected to be here.
By lunchtime on the 5th of October. Yeah. Is that right, Mr. Pitt? Can you manage that?
Thank you.
members as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Shall we adjourn for 5 minutes? I'll start putting stuff in my suitcase. So, how long does it take to get to the Language Avenue from here?
Without traffic, about 30 minutes. 13, 1.
13, oh sorry, I
14, yeah, from. No, it's okay. 1, 3.
Right, so, well, whenever Mr. Newton comes back.
We haven't identified a room, but we will just make sure there is a suitable room. Can we say that the pins and the opponent will be notified which room they're going to be in?
Will it be in this building?
It'll be in this
Oh,
building.
that's right, because another London authority that I will not name sends out details for inquiries in the town hall, and when you turn up at 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning for your inquiry, you find it's in a completely different building.
I know which authority it is. I think it's...
I think you act for them, don't you?
I think I am.
Not on that occasion.
No, but on the last occasion we encountered each other, I think Mr. Grant was appearing for that authority.
Right, but as long as it's in this building.
It's this building. We're told it will be this room, the council chamber, or a committee room.
That's right.
I don't know.
I don't think we need necessarily to know more than that.
No.
No, I'm very happy to turn up
As long as it's
downstairs.
civic centre.
I didn't have any idea which room I was coming to today, nor was there a sign up, but I just followed the crowd.
I don't think it needs any formal notification procedure.
I'd like Miss Stockwell to be told, and Mr. Hayes,
Mr. Hayes.
and obviously Mr. Singer will notify members of his community if they want to come along. Right. And list of who's appearing by midday on the Monday the 5th. So everybody. Okay. Is there anything else we can usefully do? I've got the attendance list. Okay. Are we going to start at 9:30 or 10?
We've got 3 days, why don't we go for 10, at least on the first day, and then see where we're at.
Okay. 10 on the first day to see where we're going. Okay, that's fine. Right, so I'm going to go with Rabbi, who's coming
Mr. Newton's going in that car as well.
and then you're following up Mr. Pempton.
That's right.
Okay. And that's fine. Okay then. So we'll see you on the site, and hope everyone has a very pleasant summer. And autumn, really. See you in October. Right, thank you all very much. Adjourn until the 10 o'clock on the 12th, Monday the 12th of October.